Yeah, man, there definitely is no, like, everyone listening, like, everyone has their own flavor, their own style.
Yeah.
When I first got into tech sales, like, this is one of the things that I see a lot, especially with other young professionals, is feeling like they need to be super professional, super buttoned up, like, not letting themselves, I guess, figure out what works for them, right? And depending on who you are, like, if you're not very funny, like, don't try and push to be funny, right? Like, find what works for you. I don't use the how are you. I'm always like, hey, look, I know I caught you out of the blue. Can I just have like 20 seconds? I'll share why I called, and you can decide if it even makes sense to talk. But I think one of the things you mentioned is the tone, the pitch, the influx, the way that you're saying it also makes a big difference. Like, sound genuine and human. When you're saying how are you, I'm sure you say it in a way that actually probably they feel that you're actually asking it genuinely.
Genuine enough to at least them to say, okay, they're not the spammy cold caller guys sitting in a big call center. So you're totally right.
Totally. And then, and now I'm curious, what if they just say, wait, ring, you say, who's this? Hi, I'm Trent, etc. How are you? Who are you? What do you typically say right after that? Who? Wait, who?
It happens all the time, and one of my cold calling principles is two here. We'll give you two. So what you say isn't as important as how you say it. That plays into the tone, pitch, and inflection. And number two, if the call feels rushed, it's you who are rushing the call. So the prospects will try and take back control by saying, who are you? Why are you calling? What do you want? What is this? What are you trying to sell? Whatever it may be. Whenever, or hey, not a good time, I'm about to run into a meeting. They try and rush it. They try and throw you off. You always have to just stick to just give them what they want. I always say, look, the reason I'm calling you specifically is XYZ. I'm being as genuine about, hey, the reason I'm calling you is, and my intention here is to help them. I want to sell time. That's the purpose of the cold call. I'm trying to set up a meeting so that I can talk to them about how my solution will help them make them look good in their business so that they can get promoted, help their business be more successful. And as long as you're coming from a place of intention and that's what you're trying to do, opposed to, oh, I need to set these meetings so that I can get paid my accelerator this month or whatever it may be, I think that will show through. And if you do that long enough, I think it just starts to resonate.
So I had a call back the other day. Dude, I totally bombed it. Not really excited to share that, but it's a good learning opportunity. I was making quite a bit of cold calls, and I use my personal cell phone. I think a lot of us do. And when I got a call back, I did not have an effective process. I just generally I don't get callbacks. That's why my voicemails, I'm like, hey, look, don't even call me back. I shot you an email. Here's the subject line. Long, short of it is this. Again, email have more context. Here's the subject line again, right? I don't generally get callbacks, and I didn't have enough time. Typically, what I like to do if I get a call back is, oh, Jerry, awesome. Hey, look, I'm actually headed into a meeting right now. Flip it back on them. Can I call you back, though, right after? Thanks for calling me back. And what that does is it gives me a chance to go back in and figure out, okay, who is this Jerry guy? I use their phone number. I'm like, it was at this private equity firm, whoever I'm talking to. Then I can call them back and say, hey, thanks again for calling, but I have the context. I didn't do that this last time and just totally bombed the call because I was trying to wing it, and I genuinely called too many people. I don't remember who Jerry was. So when you get a call back, if and when that happens, I'm just curious because I bombed it and pretty much lost that opportunity to sell the meeting. What do you do?
So early on in my SDR career, similar to most of you and yourself, my dialer is connected to my phone in a way. So I'm calling through the internet using a local presence, meaning it's showing up with the prospect's local area code, which some people go back and forth on should you be doing that or should you be doing your number. I use the local presence. And whenever someone calls back, it then routes to my cell phone. And we don't, of course, have caller ID connected to the cell phone, so we don't know that this is Jerry at Tesla calling back. What I do when I get a call back is I, of course, have no idea who they are, and I used to freak out and say, I don't know why I was calling them. I always slow down and say, look, I'm not going to rush this. If they call me back, that's a really good sign because either something in my messaging caught their attention to which they want to know more, or maybe they just actually have no idea who I am or why I called, and that's why they're calling, so they're confused, and you might be confused. What I do is if I'm speaking with a prospect, I personally would never say, I want to call you back because I don't feel like I need to be prepared. when I reach out to people, fortunately, I'm calling one buyer persona, so I call HR people. So regardless of who they are, what company they are, I generally have an idea what they may care about. And I say, look, I don't have caller ID, so I'll try and subtly figure out who they are, what company they are, and then maybe that will give me some context. But I'll say, look, the reason I was reaching out is we're here to help you improve employee engagement, retention, productivity. Are any of these a priority for you this year? I'll kind of just throw some shots in the dark, hoping that something hits. And if so, then I'm going to go into a normal call and try and set the meeting. If I get a call back, I think that this plays back into being intentional with who you call, because if you have a reason for calling everyone, you know that if you get a call back, you want to set up time with them. So if I get them to call me back, I'm going to try and set up a meeting, or we'll hash out there if there's no alignment, regardless of knowing who they are or what they do.
I know that generally I just bombed it. I think I didn't really think through that case, and I'm reaching out to some different types of some folks too. So it's hard when he calls back for me to be like, oh, and what was your position? Like, what's your
oh, yeah, sounds bad.
No, no. That is not the way this goes, you know? Something that I think is really important as reps, first off, is recognizing, man, when you are an account executive, I've connected with some enterprise account executives recently that have been in this space for 10, 15 years, and it's so awesome to see them so humble, being like, dude, I still talk to my SDRs and learn from them. Like, who would actually win, right? If you're taking a seasoned account executive and a badass SDR in a room, the SDRs, that's what they do every day. And so I think continuing to learn, and, you know, messaging and strategies have changed, you know what I mean, even from 3 to 5 years ago on what works via email and things like that. Something that people will continue to focus on is don't sell the product, sell the meeting. How do you go about doing that? Like, how do you incorporate that into your scripts?
So when I'm cold calling, my intention is to sell time, set up the meeting. And when I eventually have that initial meeting, then it's about building value through discovery. But through the lens of an SDR looking at this, you were there to sell time. So early on as an SDR, like you would do, like it's very hard to qualify on a cold call, meaning you don't most likely know if they have budget, their timeline, their existing solution. I am there to then just try and figure out, is what I'm selling even in the stratosphere of what they're thinking about? So I start with asking a really open-ended question. So I'm selling to HR buyer personas. Hey, this is Trent from company name. How are you? The reason I'm calling you specifically is that I'm following up on a recent email I had sent you, because I always send the email first, so hopefully that kind of opens up the door, and I want to get them to say yes. And then I'll say, look, the reason I was calling you specifically is I was wondering if employee engagement or employee feedback collection is a priority for you or the team in 22. It's such a broad question that sometimes they say, of course it is, of course it is. And then I'm like, okay, value prop, make the ask for their time.
Do you ever get like resistance though, as that's too broad?
No, rarely. Most of the time, I'm just trying to get a quick yes so that I then can say, well, it sounds like that this is an area of interest for you. Let's set up a time to talk about how we can help you. So I'm trying to keep it broad purposefully, and just to smooth in, because if I'm too specific, it may not resonate. And that's at least the strategy I found to be a great way to at least get in the door. Because with the cold calling, you're kind of spraying and praying, and that goes back to the volume thing. And I think that I'd rather have an approach that is going to appeal to the masses. But of course, if you can customize your script on the call based on a unique understanding of the buyer, such as have they spoken with you in the past, or are they a current customer you're trying to cross-sell, then you can pull that into your script to maybe be higher touch. But that's at least the strategy I found, so that you can at least get in the door.
Yeah. No, that's helpful. So what do you think are some of the bigger mistakes that you see folks make when they're cold calling?
So number one, the biggest one is underestimating the level of volume and activity it takes to be successful. It really is a numbers game. And I know it's a cliche to say, but if you look at the 4 Moneyball metrics, that's what we call them to evaluate effectiveness of outbound cold call prospecting, you have answer rate, you have set rate, you have show rate, and conversion rate. So I know you asked for mistakes, but number one is just pure volume. And if you just look at this like a formula and operationalize it and say, if I make 1,000 calls and I have a 5% answer rate, okay, 50 people are going to answer, whatever it may be. If I have a 15% set rate, then I'm going to set 15 meetings, whatever that calculation is, and then X, how many people are actually going to show, and then how many are actually going to convert to opportunities. And if you say, I need 10 qualified opportunities per month, then reverse engineer that formula and say, okay, I need to make 2,669 calls. And it's as really as simple as that. And then I'd say the second biggest mistake is not collaborating with other top performers. So no matter who you are, no matter where you work at, you must respect somebody. You must look up to somebody at your company. Set up time with them and just be like, look, I think that this plays into not being scared to ask for help or appearing vulnerable like you don't know something. This is something I always do before a new role or whenever I feel like I'm in a slump. I'll reach out to someone and say, look, I admire you from a distance. I really like the way you carry your business. I'd like to hear about what you've been doing to be successful. And a lot of people reach out to me and say, Trent, what should I do to prepare to be successful? Hey, I'm trying to figure this out. I say, go set up time with whoever's the best performing rep on your team at your company and just figure out what they do and then make it your unique way of doing things. And sales you don't need to overthink it because whatever works, you can rinse and repeat. And that's what it's all about. So the biggest mistakes are not taking enough action and failing to ask for help. And it's especially difficult in a remote environment. So you have to really go out of your way to do it. And if you care about being more successful and getting better, those are just two very simple things that are totally in your control that you can go do today to help.
One thing that I love that you mentioned and I'm a huge believer in is like, man, people don't realize, and this is my opinion, this isn't fact, but they're weaponized enough to be really successful. Like, you know enough. You don't have to be the best at sales. You don't have to be the best at overcoming objections. You don't have to be the swiftest at managing conversations as with multiple stakeholders. If you know enough and you're actually just doing the things that need to get done, you'll be very surprised at the results. It's that we do all this busy work that actually isn't productive, and we feel like we've been trying so hard, but the reality is you're not putting in the actual work that moves the needle. Something else that you mentioned is vulnerability, and that being a strength. I just listened to Dev, the CEO of MongoDB, on Hunters and Unicorns, and he talks about how, as a CEO or executives, they don't know a lot, and vulnerability is a strength. And it's one thing that I used to live by when I was in real estate at 19 years old. I would tell clients, look, I obviously don't know everything. I don't have 20 years in the business, but what I can tell you is I put myself around the right people. So I have the team behind me. I have the answers around me, right? I don't need to be the smartest person in the room. I just need access to those people.
What I think about this is that, one, at the end of the day, everyone's just a person. I think in tech, what you'll find is a lot of the people are naturally younger. So I find myself in meetings with executives that are making like 10x what I'm making, and they're just people too. Everyone struggles with the same problems, but from a vulnerability standpoint, what I equate this to is just being coachable. And this is something I really hold my hat on, and people have told me that this is a strength of mine, is you're very coachable. And I feel like I can never reach a level where I'm too good to then listen to someone else's opinion or viewpoint. And what I really do is I feel like I'm self-aware. So when I identify a gap in my approach, whether it be prospecting, whether it be internal branding, whether it may be in my messaging or just something going on in my life, I then go to people I respect, my direct manager, friends, colleagues who I admire, and I say, look, this is something specifically I'm struggling with. How do you think about this? What do you go about it? And hopefully they can then give you maybe help you get out of your own head, change up your sense of beliefs, give you a new framework. So I think it's about being self-aware enough to recognize, look, I don't know it all. And if I want to get better, I have to learn from other people and figure out how can I get better. And ultimately, it's outlearning other people is what will set you apart over time. And that's how I've been able to promote about 6 times at the same company over a 3-year, 9-month stretch, is because I'm outlearning other people from being proactive with self-development, but also identifying weaknesses and improving.
It's incredible. Promoted 6 times in such a short time frame, man. That's no easy feat. It's interesting. The most successful people I know, or if I ask for advice, or I'm talking to people that have been in this space so much longer, it's so funny how they're so interested in learning from me. Or whoever they're talking to, they're so interested from learning at them. They're really good at checking their ego at the door. And it baffles me how many people I see that come into a new company that ramp up, And for example, they might have a cadence that works really well with leads, or a cadence that works, but instead they try and recreate the wheel. It's like, dude, you literally have a proven wheel like right in front of you. Just follow it, right? Or like go to the best reps. What do they do? Learn from them. It's a shortcut to success, and it's baffling to see how many people don't do that.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to what do you want, and I feel like there's always two kinds of people at a company: the people that are trying to move the mission forward, or the people that are just there to collect a paycheck. So you need to ask yourself, what do you want? And from an ego standpoint, like you said, it's if you want to be the best person on your team, it's really easy to get wrapped up in what everyone else is doing. Early on in my SDR career, when someone else would outperform me, it would make me insecure in a way, and I would be jealous, and I'd say, that should be me. I should be that person with that big opportunity we just pulled in. But once you can look in the mirror and say, look, I'm competing against myself. It's all about maximizing my own potential, not what anyone else is doing. Once you can recognize that and say, okay, do I want to promote? What do I want to do? And I think by focusing more on your targets and your goals opposed to the challenges, that's what helps you stay focused on a day-to-day basis to say, I'm only going to do the activities that help move me forward so that I can be more successful. And a part of that is, of course, checking your ego at the door and feeling like, hey, I always have a beginner's mindset, and there's always something new I can learn.
When do you actually prospect every day?
So it varies. So as an SDR, it's all day. I would show up, call, find new people to call more, send emails, and then have more people to call the next day. And that's what it is as an SDR. As an account executive, I focus my time on pipeline generation, pipeline health, meaning moving deals forward, negotiating, demoing, whatever, and then self-development. So now as an account executive, I show up and my objective is to find at least 5 new people to add to my sequence to eventually call. So I'll find new people, and then you're running meetings throughout the day, but anytime I have a gap, I'm either calling or sending emails. And that's what I think about it as an account executive. But as an SDR, you should be prospecting all day.
Do you time block much when it comes to prospecting still as an account executive?
I used to early on so I could stay more focused, and I would say between 10 and 11, all I'm going to do is send emails. It's very hard to stay disciplined, but what I found is when you're doing a task, just focus on just that task. So don't go in saying you're going to call, but then next thing you know, you're responding to a bunch of emails. So be very deliberate with when you're doing a task. Focus on it hard for at least 10, 20 minutes, and that's how you can really start to move the needle forward.
Super helpful. And before we wrap up, I know we're coming up here on time, and I do have a few questions for just like the fire round as we wrap this up. In my opinion, gritty and resilience are the 2 biggest characteristics of just being able to continue and be consistent and be gritty, especially when it comes to prospecting. I don't care if you're an SDR, an account executive. How did you develop those characteristics? Like, whether it was what you told yourself every day, a mindset, maybe it was a stupid routine, or a song that you listened to every time that you felt like not making the calls, or someone hung up on you, or you were getting frustrated. Like, do you have any insight to share there?
Yeah, so we're all humans, and it never feels good to get rejected. But that's something I think holds a lot of people back, is they reach out and say, how do I get over my fear of calling? And I say, well, if you're afraid of rejection or doing the work, then sales isn't for you, and it's good to have that self-awareness and maybe find something else to do. But if you've decided, hey, sales is for me, then think about this comes back to what do you want? And I think a lot of people are confused about what do they actually want. Are they there to pick up a paycheck? Are they there to promote? Are they there to make XYZ money to buy a house? So think about what do you want and write your goals down every day. So before I even start the day, before I even think about prospecting, I'm writing down, I have closed $517,500 in revenue in Q1 and promoted from account executive 5 to 6. Very specific. That is my target. So all of my actions need to then back that target. So I'm very focused on only doing the activities that then move the ball to that target. So a part of that is getting rejected and putting yourself out there. You're paid to be told no. So be very thoughtful of what is your actual target, and then only focus on that. And then I think what separated me is I go to bed early, I get 8 hours of sleep, I drink a lot of water, I work out, I write down my goals, and there's no distractions. It's just I'm completely focused on that objective of closing whatever revenue and getting better. And you start to stack day after day, week after week, month after month. That's how you really start to move forward.